Alright, y'all. So today I got something a little interesting for y'all. So I've been seeing some videos like, oh, what if Zoro took all Luffy's fights? Or what if Sanji replaced Zoro? You know? And I wanna try that too. But I love me some fairy tale. I know y'all love y'all some One Piece. So I'm gonna just mix it up for y'all and see how it go. Let's see what happens if we replace Natsu with Luffy. Let me clarify what I mean by replace Natsu. So we're gonna take Natsu completely out of the story. What that means is Natsu's not gonna be a thing. But what's gonna happen is we're gonna put Luffy in the situation. I will nerf Luffy for arcs. He's not gonna obviously start off with Gear 5 or Gear 4 around the bat. If he obviously he's gonna glide through the whole damn show. So I'm gonna give Luffy Gear 5 around no, what Gear 5? No, I'm gonna give him Gear second around the Ration 6, and then at the end of Tenro, so the first time skip, secondary time skip, I'm gonna give him access to Gear third. Then after the Grand Magic Games, I'll give him access to Gear 4. We're not gonna give him Gear 5 because I feel like Gear 5 he probably do too much. This will only go up until the end of the final series. I'm not gonna go into the 100-year quest because I know some people haven't read it and wait for the manga to come out, and it's a lot of factors I need to put in for that. I don't really know all the details myself, but yeah, that's how we're gonna go. So Luffy won't get Gear second until Ration 6, Gear third until after Tenro, and then we won't get Gear fourth until after Grand Match Games. So let's get into it. For the most part, this is gonna be like Natsu fought this guy. How's Luffy gonna do for the most part? But we're gonna try and see if we can put like Luffy into the story a little bit. It's not too serious. We're really here just to see if Luffy could fight the same villains that Natsu fought. The first villain that Natsu really fought was Bora. If you remember from the first episode, the purple fire dude. Natsu obviously whooped him because Natsu can eat fire, but Luffy doesn't have that. Um, that being said, Bora Luffy should easily beat this guy. This guy had nothing really special to him. It was just fire, and y'all love to say Luffy's resistant to fire. Y'all kind of hype that up a lot to where like, oh, fire doesn't really work on Luffy. Um, it Fire does still affect him, just not as potent. The Aizenwall arc, Natsu fought a couple people here. He fought Kageyama, the Shikamaru looking guy with the shadow magic. I think Luffy might just be faster than him, or maybe able to outsmart him. We will keep this in mind. Water will affect Luffy, but we're not gonna give him motion sickness like how Natsu did. So this first fight where he's on the train, Luffy's obviously gonna body this man. But he's not gonna be sick. Against Aragorn is where I think it's kind of questionable if he were to win or not, because Aragorn shielded himself and win, and honestly, wind cuts through stuff like flesh and stone, and Luffy's pretty weak to cutting attacks. That's the only real like type of physical damage he can take is like cutting attacks, and wind cuts through stuff. So I don't know. It's a questionable fight. Maybe he can outlast Aragorn or dodge him a bit. Uh, Natsu had to use fire in order to move the wind up so it wouldn't be on Aragorn. So I don't know. I think Luffy could beat him. I don't think it's gonna be too much of a struggle. He's not really that strong of a character, Aragorn. So I think Luffy could take that. So Natsu versus Yuka and Toby. So we're replacing Natsu with Luffy. So Yuka has some anti-magic like wave stuff that like vibrates really fast, so it like negates magic apparently. And Toby has some poison nails. The way Natsu beat Yuka was just brute force. Like he just shoved his whole body through the wave and just punched him. I think Luffy can do that. We will consider his Gum Gum Fruit as magic, so it would negate his stretching ability. But I still think he would be able to have enough force to knock Yuga out in one punch. And Natsu is almost as dumb as Luffy, and Natsu outsmarted Toby. So I think Luffy's gonna be able to outsmart him too. Getting into the Phantom Lord arc, a really big arc. We have Fairy Tail vs. Phantom, where Luffy would be involved here. Luffy would obviously have the same feelings as everyone else. I think this would pretty much go the same way. He would fight Gajo when they first meet up. Natsu versus Tochimaru. That's how you say his name, the fire guy that controls the fire. Natsu only struggled with him because he was controlling his fire. Luffy doesn't have fire, so I think he's fine enough to either outsmart him with his stretchiness, because Natsu was only there to break the Lacrima, which I think Luffy could do. What we actually want to see is the rematch between Natsu and Gajo, so putting Luffy in. He did get a bit. We're gonna put him in the same circumstance. So Natsu had a bit of his power drained from Arya, and he was struggling against Tochimaru. So he's a little fatigued, not that fatigued, but a little bit. On top of that, Gash was able to eat iron and get his strength back, which Luffy doesn't have that type of ability. He can't like eat rubber and get stronger. Natsu did have to consume some fire to get the upper hand in this fight, so honestly, I don't think, without any gears, I think Luffy doesn't win this fight. You know, I think Gajo just has a lot of durability and a lot of speed and power compared to what Luffy got. Yes, he has all his rubber abilities, but I just don't think he has a way of putting Gajo down the way Natsu did. Getting into the Tower of Heaven arc, Natsu versus Jalal. Because Jalal wasn't really doing much, to be real. Natsu was just overpowering him a lot, and I think Luffy could do that too if he just kept it smart and paced himself. But obviously Natsu was going through a lot of emotional angst, like Jalal hurting Urza and all that, so I think if Luffy were to get those amps too, I think he'd be able to beat Jalal in the same way Natsu was able to. So moving on to the Battle of Fairy Tail. We're gonna keep Luffy in the same situation as Natsu. So so Luffy's not gonna be able to leave the guild hall like Natsu wasn't able to. That being said, we skip all the way to the end of the arc where we have Natsu and Gajo. So it'd be Luffy and Gajo versus Loxus. I will tell y'all that Loxus lightning probably will not work on Luffy because lightning and the rubber. I will tell you this: I think physical punches will still hurt Luffy because Loxus is strong, we're not gonna lie, but I feel like it's gonna be a lot easier of a fight because Gajo's no slouch here, and Luffy being immune to pretty much everything Loxus can do would be pretty easy for them. This probably will make Loxus go for Fairy Law faster, so I'm gonna say Luffy and Gajo take the dub over Loxus here. So getting into the Archon Stace arc, we will give Luffy the ability to go Gear Second here. So first real fight is a rematch between Luffy and Aragorn. Obviously, this is where I kind of like get dull in this. Like I'm just gonna like, oh, Gear Second, he can beat him in Gear Second, which he could beat Aragorn with Gear Second, but I think leveling up through the series of Fairy Tail, he'd be able to beat Aragorn easy, like how Natsu did here. So going past that, we got okay, Natsu and Happy versus Cobra and Gavilio. So it'll be Luffy and Happy. So Happy will be helping Luffy fly around. Luffy will still be able to stretch. Cobra has some OP version of observation hawk. He can hear everything. He can hear your thoughts. Yeah, crazy. He can hear your thoughts. He can hear your like the next move you're gonna do. The way Natsu was able to defeat him was just screaming really freaking loud that it hurt his ears. I think Luffy could probably come to the same conclusion as that. So I think with that, I think Luffy will be able to beat Cobra because Luffy's always loud. So I think this is an easy dub for Luffy against Cobra. That being said, we're gonna go on to Luffy versus Zero. Okay, he has Gear Second here. He's most definitely gonna go Gear Second here. Would that help against Zero? Personally, I don't think so. Only reason Natsu was able to win is because he was able to burn through a dimension that Zero sent him to, where it's literally a void of nothingness. I don't think Luffy can burn through a void of nothingness, so unless Luffy's able to defeat Zero faster than Natsu could, which I will argue that Gear Second is a lot faster than Dragon Force, so maybe, but Zero is really smart and really powerful, so I doubt he'd be able to need that against Luffy. But if Luffy's able to come out with a dub, I wouldn't be too questionable. If he had like gear second, or if he had like gear third or gear fourth, then I'm like, okay, it's a lot more believable. But gear second, it's almost pushing it. But I'm gonna say he, it's 50-50. I think personally, I think Zero wins if he just sends it to the dimension. If he doesn't, then I think Luffy has a chance, but it's really slim. Natsu, Gajio, and Wendy versus the Iron Dragon thing. So Luffy here with help from Wendy and Gajio, I think this is gonna be a lot easier, especially with Gear Second. So I think that's a pretty easy fight because Wendy's gonna buff Luffy and also Gajio's there to help him, and Luffy can go Gear Second if he needs to, which I think he will against this opponent. So, I think we win this fight here with Luffy. So right now we're going into the Tenro Island arc. So after this arc, we'll give Luffy the access to use Gear Third. Next fight Natsu had was against Zonpro. This was a really hard fight for Natsu because he couldn't eat his fire off the bat. But this is Luffy we're talking about. Luffy, I'll give him somewhat of a resistance to fire, not a complete immunity. But Zoncro's fire is a bit different, so it is gonna hurt Luffy a bit. It is God Slayer magic, so it's meant to slay gods. It's fire. So and Natsu needed help with Makarov to beat Zoncro, but was actually able to get the dub. So I think with Gear Second and the help from Makarov, the help that he did get, I think Luffy could beat Zoncro because they're not Logia, so it's not really gonna phase through him. So I think Luffy could win if he had help from Makarov the way Natsu did. Have Luffy, Lucy, Gray, Urza, and Wendy, and eventually losses against Hades. So the main thing that happened here was Loxus giving his magic to Natsu, letting Natsu be able to become a flame lightning dragon. Luffy can't do that. So I could say they can stall out because the main real reason why they beat Hades is because down in the ship he had the Grimoire Heart, which is actually where his power comes from. Without that, he can't really do too much. So if they can stall out until that point, I think they can win, which is what they did. So, but obviously Natsu's not the main reason why they won that. A lot of people want to lead up to power friendship. I don't personally think that. I know Happy was down there. We all know Happy and Lily and Carla was down there destroying the heart. So Hades couldn't do anything about that. So that's why they won. So like I said, if Luffy can stall out with these people, then I think they win. So now after this time skip, we're gonna give Natsu the ability to use Gear. We're gonna give Luffy the ability to use Gear Third. So now he can stretch out and be all big and all that. Okay, so Grand Magic Games. The perfect time is Natsu versus Sabretooth. So we're gonna say if Luffy ran into the Sabretooth Guild and fought everyone. Natsu fought the ninja dude who wasn't really a threat. Natsu kind of just one-shot at him. I think Luffy do the same thing to him in the same way. But against Giemma is where it really matter. I think Luffy could do the same thing to Giemma that Natsu did. I don't know if Giemma's just weak or he just like underestimated Natsu, but Natsu was gonna destroy that man until Minerva showed up. So overall, it doesn't really matter if Luffy was gonna destroy him or not. I think Luffy could. I don't think he needs to go like anything past Gear Second. So I think it's an easy dub for Luffy here. Next fight we have Luffy in it. Luffy and Gajio versus Sting and Rogue. Okay. This is kind of debatable. He does have Gear Third here, so I think it's pretty easy that Luffy wins this. Because Gajio's going to help him out, but Natsu did kind of betray Gajio at the end and pushed him out of the fight. So we 1v2'd them, and Natsu still came out with the dub, even though these guys were in Dragon Force and quote-unquote real Dragon Slayers and a lot stronger. But it's after Natsu and Gajio figured out their moves, they were light work. So I think if Luffy and Gajio got the same scheme going on, I think they could win. because light and darkness don't really affect Luffy that like anything like that. So I think Luffy could end up beating these two by himself the same way Natsu did with Gear Third. But here's where I think Luffy starts to fall off. Is against Future Rogue. Future Rogue is a lot stronger. He has control over dragons, and he took the power from Sting in his timeline and came back to the past to kill Zeref or kill Anogi, one of the two. Natsu kind of struggled against this guy, even with a rage amp, seeing a future Lucy die right in front of him. Yeah, he still struggled against Future Rogue with that. So I think Luffy would still struggle here, even with Gear Third and Gear Second. So yeah, I don't know if Luffy be able to beat this guy at this current time. I think Future Rogue might win. Okay, now since we're after the Grandmaster games, I will give Luffy the ability to go to Gear 4th. So Gear 4th, pretty strong in form. Taro's arc, which is where Natsu kind of shines against some villains. His arc is very long. So first fight is Natsu. So we're gonna have Luffy versus Jackal. Jackal is pretty much a very stronger version of Bakugo as a demon. He has a big giant werewolf form, which didn't really make sense to me. But Natsu beat him because he had explosions, and Natsu was just able to eat the explosions. I want to say explosions don't work on Luffy. I don't know how, but he might need to go Gear 4th, maybe Gear 3rd. But I just feel like Jackal is just a lot. He's strong. Like, he's not a joke. If Luffy win Gear 4th, then I think he'd win. Overall, I think he'd win this fight. Okay, overall, I think he'd win this fight. That's what we're here for. Be Luffy, Sting, and Rogue versus Margear. Natsu being there wasn't doing anything for them, so I don't think Luffy being here, unless he went completely all out, I don't think they have a chance against Margear. And Margear wasn't trying. He had one hand on the book the whole time. It was until Dre showed up, and Natsu's gonna have to, or Luffy's gonna have to help Gray get an opening on Margear, because Gray has Demon Slayer magic at this point in time, being able to one-shot Margear with Demon Slayer attack. So Luffy's gonna have to support Gray here and let him get the shot off. If he doesn't, then they don't win. Support them. Now we get to the time skip. Like I said, I'm not gonna give him Gear 5 here. So it doesn't be overpowered. But now we get to the second to last fight in this video is Luffy versus Zeref. The rematch in the guild hall. So obviously Luffy's gonna have to go Gear 4. But even with that, I'd say until Zeref gets very hard, he has a chance. But if Zeref gets very hard, it's 100% over. You know, nothing Luffy can do is beating Zeref, even with Gear 5. I don't think Luffy's beating very hard Zeref at all. But the last fight we're going to talk about in this video is Dragon Slayers versus Ilogia. So we're replacing Natsu with Luffy. So Luffy's there with all the other Dragon Slayers, and they kind of channel their power into Luffy. I think the same thing would happen here. And just able to absorb all their power and punch at Nogia and get the dub. Everything's happy-dory on everything. So I think for the most part, we're not gonna go over the 100-year quest because it's still going on, and there's a lot of things that I can't really decide on, and I don't really want to go over it because I know a lot of people haven't really seen the 100-year quest and are waiting for the anime to come out, or just doesn't read fairy tale. But it really should. It's really interesting. But that's gonna end it for this video. Kind of enjoyed thinking about this. Might do this for reverse. Like, what if Natsu was in One Piece? That'd be really hard because Natsu has motion sickness. But with that being said, I think this is a pretty fun idea. I've seen it around on YouTube. I want to try it myself. I'm gonna try to upload a little bit more anime stuff, considering that's what y'all like, mainly fairy tale stuff. So yeah, again, to end this video. I'm gonna see y'all later. Make sure y'all subscribe, man. Like, trying to get to a high number soon, bro. Like, y'all watched the whole video. The whole video. Y'all watched the whole video. Y'all subscribe. What y'all doing, bro? Okay, I'm gonna get out of here. Peace.